Well, what's up, my friend? Welcome back to our series on how to build your first AI agent. And in this video, we're going to be moving on and continuing with the process by showing you how to set up a database with all of the important company information that you have so that your agent will be able to answer whatever questions someone coming to your website might be interested in. And we're going to be doing that using what's called a Pinecone Assistant or a Pinecone vector database. And if all of that is very confusing to you, don't worry, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand how to do everything. It's actually pretty simple. But if you're new, this is what we're building. We're building an AI agent that will sit on your website, that will be able to answer questions, route people to the appropriate person, and also just generate leads and sales for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without having to have a human being monitor it. And it looks like this. This is what we're building out right now. And so far, we've gotten through all of the steps except adding the Pinecone vector database. And so that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So if all you're concerned about is the Pinecone stuff, this is going to be a great video for you. But if you are interested in designing your first agent, or if this looks like something that would be valuable for you or your business, then I suggest clicking on the little card up here in the corner, right there. That will take you back to the beginning of the series and will help you get caught up. For everybody else, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, this training is going to be just a little bit longer than the other ones in the series because I want to explain to you what a vector database is, because it's important for your conceptually for you to understand what's happening. So when we think about a traditional database, like a Dropbox folder or a Google Drive folder, what happens when we do that? Well, we come in and we just end up uploading documents, right? And we upload a bunch of documents and they just sort of sit in this database, and you can go and search for them, search for specific documents, or sometimes even specific information in a document. But the problem comes when we try and use an AI agent to access this information. So we might have in here something about our pricing and something about our hours of operation. And we might have another document that talks about all of the people in the company and what their company emails or company phone numbers are. Any of that stuff we might add to a database that we would want to give access to, our AI agent access to. The problem with doing it like this, traditionally, is that the agent then has to go, unless you tell it specifically go look at this document, which in our use case, they're not going to do because the person coming to your website doesn't know what document to go look for. It's going to have to read through all of these documents until it finds what it thinks is the right answer and then send that answer back. So it's not only time consuming, but the chances of you getting an error with the response are pretty high, because the agent will generally either read every document, which would takes forever, especially if you potentially have hundreds of documents uploaded, but it also tends to stop when it thinks it found the right answer, and oftentimes that's not the right answer. So what a vector database does is it takes each one of these documents and it breaks it up into chunks. And I've tried to help you visualize what that looks like by sort of color coding this text. So this would be text inside of one of your documents, and it sort of chops it up into chunks so that's easier for it to be searchable. And then what the vector database does is it plots all of these little chunks in 3D space, and kind of clusters them where the topics or the subject are kind of the same. And this is a hard concept to wrap your head around, but it's essentially a digital 3D environment. And it's plotting all of these little dots, and each one of these dots is a different piece of information. That's the important part, is it's not just a stack of documents, it's actually chunks of documents that are all kind of aligned in 3D space. And what this allows our agent to do, okay, is to go in, and once we have asked a question to our agent, so again, once we come to the website and somebody says, hey, what are your hours of operation? Our agent can then send that information over, and it's going to plot in 3D space that question. And it's going to look for the closest answers, in this case, the closest 3 answers to that question. And it's going to take those 3 answers and it's going to send it back to the agent. And the agent is then going to decide, based on the information that I've retrieved, here's what I think the best response is. And in this case, the agent responds with, we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Okay, that's kind of the gist of it. Now, what's kind of cool about the way we are going to do it is there is some struggle in some cases with the agent being able to pull enough information to respond the way we want it to. And so many times, unless you start pulling 10 or 20 or 50 responses, especially if you're asking it complex questions, you can get some weird responses. Now, for our use case, it's probably not going to matter. But when we add in an assistant, the way we're going to do it, you see that this agent looks a lot like our agent that we're building, right? Same sort of tools. But when we install our last little tool here, we're not just installing a link to the vector database, we're actually connecting it to its own agent. It's an agent on Pinecone, what they call an assistant, that specializes in formatting the data in the vector database and then retrieving that information. So you can think of this a lot like, imagine if you had one of the old school sort of records rooms, right? Where there's just files and files and files of stuff. And you went down to the records room and you were looking for a specific file or the answer to a specific problem that you're having. If you don't work in that records room and you're not the person who organizes all the information in that room, you might have a really hard time trying to figure out where you're going to go. But if there was somebody down in the room that had organized the room and had lived there for 20 years and knew exactly where everything is that you needed, you'd be able to go find that information really quickly. Well, that's sort of the concept that we're using here by choosing to go with a Pinecone Assistant rather than just sending our agent into the vector database. Is because the Pinecone Assistant organized the information, it's going to make it easier to find, it's going to make it faster to find, and the result that we get, the response we get, is going to be much better because that agent, assistant, whichever you want to call it, knows more about the database than our AI agent does. Okay? So that's an overview of what a Pinecone Assistant is. Let's go ahead and jump back into our build. Now, in order to do this, we cannot use, as I said before, the Pinecone vector store. What we want to do is we want to grab an HTTP node. So just type HTTP and the HTTP request tool will pop up. Just click on that. Okay. And again, we're going to have to do a little bit of work here, but don't worry, it's super simple and I'm going to walk you through every step. So an HTTP request node, this is just, if you want to think about, this is how we call to a website. So this is the information that we are going to need to connect to the website and be able to do the things that we need it to do, okay? And so we're going to open this up and we're going to see the first thing it's going to ask us is to describe what this thing is, okay? And we just need to tell it what this tool is. So this tool, use this tool to query, there we go, general business FAQs, okay? So this description is going to help our AI agent know when to call to this tool, all right? And so we can actually label this as well, again, to make it even easier, and just call this RAG questions. And this will make sense later when we go again to update our system message inside of our AI agent. Now the next thing we need to know is whether we need to do a get, a post, an option, and we don't really know this stuff yet, so we're not going to worry about anything else. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to Pinecone, pinecone.io, and we need to set up a free account. And so what I want you to do is go there right now, set up your account, and then come back when you're done. And all right, now that you got yourself a free account, the next thing we're going to do is go over here in the right sidebar, and we're just going to click on Assistant. And as you can see, I already have the assistant set up that's running on the website right now. We're just going to go right here to create an assistant, and then we're going to give it a name. I'm just going to call this Slab Stone Web Chat. All right. Now we want to remember what this is, but we can find it later because we're going to use this later on when we set up our HTTP request. And then once you're done, I'm in the United States. It doesn't even give me another option. So I'm just going to click Create Assistant. And now we're going to have an area here where we can put some files in on the right. Now I went ahead and just created some dummy data for this company, Slab and Stone, that we're using to test. And it has some navigation in here. It talks about pricing and frameworks and all kinds of different stuff, what the construction process is like. And I just had ChatGPT help me with this. What I would recommend for you guys, if you don't already have documentation like this, you'll need to put something together. And for the purposes of this tutorial, it doesn't have to be much. It can just for testing, you can just put a couple of different products in there and the pricing, maybe take some sales page information and throw it into a Google document that you can upload into the Pinecone database, okay? What we do want to make sure of is that we organize this information as best we can. So I have first the document title, Slab and Stone AI Reference Manual. So I want to be really clear in this heading 1 what this thing is, so that when the AI agent goes to look for information, it knows, hey, this is the reference manual that I'm supposed to access. And then as you see, I have navigation, I have heading 2 all the way through here, different headings that help for each of the sections, just to make it easier for the AI agent to organize this information inside the vector database. But hopefully you have something that's ready to go. If not, just pause the video, go make throw some stuff together in a Google document, and then we can upload it together. Now that we've got that done, we're just gonna go and I'm gonna open up my files. I'm gonna search for slab. There it is, Slab and Stone Reference Manual. And I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna drag it over into the files area, and it says, there's the reference manual. I'm gonna say import. And the cool thing about this is, because we're doing this inside of an assistant, the assistant is actually going to chunk up all that information and put it into the database. And then we're going to call the assistant when we want to find out some information. Okay. So once we've done that, what we need to do next is we need to come up to our docs. And then we need to come to the little sidebar with these 3 little lines, and we need to click on this, and then we need to change it from Pinecone Database to Pinecone Assistant. And I don't know why the window always closes, but it does, so open it back up. Now that we're in Pinecone Assistant, I want you to scroll down to where it says Chat with an Assistant and click on Standard Interface. All right? Now once we're here, scroll down till you see this default response. And this looks super scary if you don't know how to code, but it's actually not complicated at all. The first thing that we want to do, let's go back and make sure we're set up here. All right. The first thing that we want to do is we need to make sure that we have all of this information set up correctly. And so I'm going to start, we're going to be making a post request, not a get request. And I can't remember why I know that, but I do. So I know it's a post request. And then we're going to take this first URL right here, and we're going to copy this. Now don't get the quotation marks, don't get anything else, just get the actual URL. And we're going to bring that back, and we're going to put it right here where the URL goes. Done. Okay. Then come down here, and I want you to open up Send Headers. Okay. And we've got several headers that we're going to have to put in here so that it knows how to make the connection. The first one is the API key. So I want you to copy API-key, nothing else, just that. Come back here. We're going to drop that in the name. Then we're going to come back and we're going to get this Pinecone API key. We're going to leave this alone because we're going to get this API key in just a minute. The second thing is to grab content type. We're going to copy that. Come back here. We're going to add another parameter, and we're going to add that in. And then we're going to grab application JSON. So we're going to tell this what type of application, what type of content we're going to be sharing with it. We're going to make one more. And we're going to come down here and grab X Pinecone API version all the way to the colon, but not grabbing the colon. And we're going to place that in there. And then we're going to grab this right here, copy, and we're going to paste this right here. Boom. Okay. So that's all done. The last thing what we are going to need is an API key, and we're going to have to replace this assistant name with the name of our actual assistant. And we'll do that in just a second. For now, the one last thing we need to do is we need to grab this. See where it says D? we want to grab all of this information here. Now, we don't want to grab the little quotation mark at the beginning and end. We want to grab everything in between, and we're going to copy this. And then at the very bottom where it says send body, we're going to tick that on. And then we're going to change specify body. We're going to change that to JSON. And then we're just going to paste it in. Okay. So that's all set up for now. Let's go back to our Pinecone. We're technically done with this at this point, so we can get rid of this, but we do need to get an API key. So come over here on the right, click on API keys. We can exit out of this, and you can see I already have an API key, but we're just going to create a new one, and we're just going to call this tutorial. And then we're going to click create key. Okay. And it's going to give me my API tutorial key. I'm going to copy this, okay, and come back to my node. And then right up here where it says, where we had API key in the value, we're going to paste that API key. And again, do not share the API keys with anybody. It's bad juju. Save that, keep it secret from everyone. All right. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to, let me just make sure everything else is correct in here. That's right. Good, good. The last thing we need to do is change our assistant name in here so that it's the actual name of the assistant that we're using. So back into Pinecone, we'll close this out, go back to our assistant, and we can see our assistant name is Slab and Stone Web Chat. So you can copy it if you want to, it doesn't really matter. We're going to come back to our workflow, and right here, everything after chat, that hash mark, we're going to put Slab and Stone Web Chat. Okay. And now we're all done except for one step. And the last step is we have to change this little area down here in the JSON code, and we have to put in some custom code in here. Because what essentially we're going to be doing here is we want the chat, whatever the chat is, and whatever the chat agent sends us, we want that to be the query. And right now, this is just going to ask who is the CFO of Netflix, which our documentation doesn't tell us what that is. Now, I already know what this code is, so I'm just going to give it to you. In this case, we want to leave the quotations. And it's going to look like this. From AI, the question, user question to search into the knowledge base. This is going to cause whatever question comes into our chat for it to go and search the database for the answer to that question. And again, I'm not a coder. I actually worked with Claude to help me write this out. So again, it just works. So go ahead and throw that in there. And now we are completely done with this entire thing, and we can go ahead and test the workflow and see how well it works. So let's go ahead and click out of this and go and test the agent and see if it can now access our database. We're going to open up our chat, and let's just ask it something simple. Let's say I want to put in a new patio in my backyard. What does something like that cost? And you'll see it should go and access the RAG, which it's doing, looking for the answer. And then once it's got it, it's going to send it back to our agent, and it's going to give us a response. The cost of installing a new concrete patio typically ranges from $7 to $15 per square foot for a standard 4-inch slab with basic finishes. If you can provide me the approximate size of the patio, and let's just say I'm thinking a 10 by, let's just see how good it is, 10 by 10 patio. Let's see if it knows that I'm talking about square feet. All right, for a 10 by 10 patio, which is 100 square feet, I got that. The basic cost range will be approximately $700 to $1,500. If you want additional features like stamping or staining, this could add another $400. So it's really given us some nice responses here. And you know what we haven't even done yet? We haven't even told the AI agent that it needs to go and check the RAG. It just is automatically making that assumption. So let's go back into our AI agent here. And let's go into our system message and let's add another tool. So let's add a second tool. And in case this is the RAG questions, and let's just tell it for this, use this tool to answer business FAQ questions. So now we're not going to update anything else because that'll be fine for now. And again, if we go back, let's save. It gives us the warning because we changed some stuff in the system prompt, but it shouldn't affect anything that we're doing. And then let's just ask it again, how long will that take? So now we're going to ask it a question about timing. And again, you just see it working. A 10 by 10 concrete patio typically takes about 2 working days. After that, you can walk on the patio 2 days and place furniture on about 3 to 5 days. Let me know if you would like help with anything else. And the last thing we want to check, just because we've already written, we've now connected a new tool, is we want to make sure that the other tools are working. So I'm going to say something to the effect of, I'd like to talk to a human. Now text or email. Now to ask for the name and email address. And now let's see if it connects. It does connect to my email. Node executed successfully, and I have the email here. We can always do more formatting in here. We can always have the agent format the emails in a specific way. For right now, again, beginner tutorial, we want to keep things as simple as we possibly can. But that's it. Now we have essentially our entire agent built. And in the next video, what we want to do is, as I said, go in and sort of refine that prompt so that we can make sure that at the right points, we're doing everything that we can to capture that lead or capture that money as it's coming onto the website so we don't lose it. So it doesn't just come and ask a bunch of questions and then run off. And so that's what we're going to do in the next video. Now, if that video is out, you are going to see it pop up right here, over here on this side. And if not, make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. Hit that bell icon and subscribe so that you don't miss the next video when it comes out. So I'm excited to share the next video with you, so go watch that now.